Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Ghana, Himalaya, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is G Brian Benson. He is the author of Steve the Alien, but he is here to tell us all about his epic cross-country adventure. Before we invite Brian into the studio, and we are actually inviting him into the actual Reading with Your Kids studios, we want to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, especially if you are the author of a fantastic children's book. When you go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. You'll see a little scroll down menu, and you can scroll down to find out how you can be a guest on the show. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book. It can also let you know about our Certified Great Read program. This is a program that has helped so many authors, especially during the pandemic when it's almost impossible to do a school visit or a book signing at a library or a bookstore. This is a way that the Certified Great Read Seal of Approval is a great way to let parents, grandparents, book lovers know that your book is worthy of their consideration. You can find it all at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. My friends, for the first time ever, we have a guest in the palatial subterranean Reading with Your Kids studios. I'm so excited to introduce you to a friend of the show and a friend of mine, G Brian Benson. He is here. He's making a stop here in Boston and in the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville to as part of his epic cross-country adventure. Brian, welcome back to the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
Thank you, Brother Jed. It's good to be here, and that was really a nice touch, the M&M bowl out in the lobby.
You welcome. And we took out all the green M&Ms.
I noticed that.
Yes. So, Brian, tell me, as I mentioned, you're on this epic cross-country journey.
Yeah.
And you're not a spring chicken. We're not going to reveal your age. You're not quite 100 years old like I am. But when we hear about folks taking cross-country journeys, a lot of times you're talking about someone who's taking a gap year between high school and college, or maybe someone who just graduated from college. You've lived a life, and then you said, you've acted in Hollywood productions. You're an author of a number of books, kids' books, self-help books. But then about a year ago, you said, I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah, let's see. So basically, last year was tough for a lot of people, I think, COVID and all, and the industry was shut down. I was living in LA, and I was also diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so I went through that, had surgery a year ago in April, and I just kind of got a little restless, and I felt like, you know what? I think I need to get out of LA for a little bit, and I wintered up into Oregon, where I'm from, and I just intuitively felt like I needed to be on the road. And, there's a few things I thought it would do. I thought it made me a little bit more self-sufficient in some ways. I thought it might kind of maybe help me get my creative mojo back, which both of those have occurred. But it's just, wow, it's really just opened up my heart, and all the people that I've been meeting, and the kind folks, like yourself, and some people that I didn't know before. It's just been wonderful, and it's kind of helped me just feel creative again and feel alive again, and just be in the present moment, seeing all these interesting, neat places kind of with new eyes. And it's been wonderful.
You mentioned seeing all these places with new eyes. Anybody battling cancer, coming through that battle with cancer on the other side, I imagine that you do have a new set of eyes. You do have a new perspective on life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really lucky. The diagnosis, it was a tough situation to go through, especially during COVID, and I kind of had to go through it by myself. But yet it gave me permission to kind of get off the hamster wheel that I was on, in maybe pushing in some areas that I didn't need to push anymore, and doing some things that I didn't really want to do anymore. And so it just kind of, I feel like I've been given permission to say no. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's, when I was going through the process itself, though, I surrendered, and it was kind of hard to explain, but I really was at peace with everything. I didn't really feel like it was going to take me or anything like that, but I just surrendered to the process and kind of probably enjoyed getting off that hamster wheel, not pushing myself like I had been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you mentioned a couple of things that I think are important to kind of highlight, and that getting off the hamster wheel. There are so many of us out there, and especially parents. We have so many parents listening to the show, and there are so many parents who have heard this message that my kid has to get into the top college, that my kid has to get into the top preschool. And in order for that to happen, in order for me to have enough money to send my kids to those great schools, I have to work 85, 90 hours a week. I'd rather be with the kids, but I need to do this because society, culture is telling me I have to do that.
Right.
And a lot of times it's just real important to say, no, I need to figure out what's important to me, and I need to make that decision.
Yes. And, when I started writing self-help books about 10, 12 years ago, I'm a really kind of fun, silly guy at times, and I started putting a lot of pressure on myself to be perfect, almost pious, and I lost parts of me. And I think this trip, one of the things it's done is help me just kind of get back to me. Mm-hmm. And create from that place, instead of creating from that place of having to get quote somewhere, or you know what I mean, or have a book sell a certain amount of, that didn't bring me happiness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes less is more, and we got to leave room for kind of synchronicity and magic to happen. And luckily, I've been living via my intuition probably the last 12 years, ever since I left my family business. And if I'm pushing too hard, nothing really gets done. And if I feel like I need to try to control the situation, there's no room for that other stuff. So, there's, like you were mentioning, all those other folks. It's just tough to be under that kind of pressure. It really just kills the, the enjoyment of the process and of living.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. The other thing you mentioned, and I think I don't want us to forget this, that we all went through the pandemic, and we all went through it together. Mm-hmm. But we were not in the same circumstances. There were some people, like my beautiful wife and I, who it was a hardship, and it was tough being locked down, but we had each other. We have this beautiful property that we live on that we could go outside and enjoy fresh air, and she was a teacher, and so we had income coming in. And there are other folks in different situations who, like yourself, was facing this tremendous medical challenge, and you had to do it by yourself. You weren't able to have family and friends to hug you and comfort you and just hang with you.
Exactly. So that was tough. Luckily I had a buddy who I went walking with a lot, and after the surgery, we'd still go walking. He took me to the hospital, but, he had to drop me off at the counter there, or, at the counter, and just, it's just kind of it's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're, going into for, that kind of surgery, and it's life-changing in different ways. And yeah, I guess what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah.
And luckily I've had some challenges in the past that I've overcome, and so it was probably had those in my back pocket a little bit, but this was different than any other of those.
Yeah. And Brian talked about, facing challenges in his life. He is a former triathlete, and boy, that's pretty challenging. Were you able to tap into any of that triathlete mentality to help you get through that medical challenge?
I think so. Yeah, probably some of it was maybe subconscious, but having accomplished some of those, those Ironman races, they're a full day, they're long. I rode my bicycle across the United States. I had those experiences inside of me, and luckily I feel like I've got some intestinal fortitude, and so I just tried to kind of treat the surgery like maybe just knee surgery or something, right? And I didn't focus too much on what could go wrong until it goes wrong, right? I mean, so I just try to stay in the present moment and just kind of be in a loving state.
Yeah. So here we are. You're nearing the end of your epic adventure across country.
Yes.
What kind of insights have you gained from all those hours on your own on the road in your van?
Yeah, I think this is day 115 or 116. So almost 4 months. There were some places I was looking forward to seeing, but to be honest with you, the best part of the trip for me has just been connecting with people, those that I knew, those that I didn't know, and just those spontaneous experiences, like the gentleman I camped next to at a lake in Paola, Kansas. He was a catfish fisherman. I don't know if that's what. And he took me out on his boat. Just a great guy, just a good old salt of the earth person, and we still keep in touch. Excellent. And there's a handful of other people like that too that I just kind of met in just out of the way places, and so those are the things that I will remember. I feel like my heart's opened up more. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, and so it's just a win-win in so many different ways. And I'm getting creative. I feel like I'm going to write a book using this trip as a container. And so I've been jotting a lot of stuff down as I go. And, it feels, I'm glad I listened to my intuition and did this, even though it might not have made sense to some folks. But it's been perfect because we're all in transition in different ways. And I'm really in transition, as far as even maybe where I'm going to live next. And so, but I'll know when I know.
Yeah. You speak, as you're speaking, I sense this vulnerability in you. And I also sense that you're okay with that.
That's a really great observation. You're absolutely right. I think to do this, I really had to kind of be vulnerable, and I want to be. I think it goes back to that place of me trying to be perfect and pious and all that kind of stuff, and presenting myself in a certain way that was me but wasn't me. And I want to get rid of that, and I want to step into the vulnerability more and the authenticity more, and that's what people want. I just want to try to be a living example, because we all ultimately want to be that way. And if some of us can do that, then we'll give permission to the others to do it as well. So I'm just trying to lay it all on the line, brother.
Yeah, I hear you. I had an experience myself where I took a bike trip to Nova Scotia when I was in my 20s, and by myself, and just went. And I know there are people out there listening thinking to themselves, that's insane. I would never just hop on a bike. I'd never just get into a camper and just go. And for a lot of folks, it's never going to happen. But if you're able to do that, and I don't know if you're able to do that with 2 kids, but if you're able to do that, it really is amazing, because you are vulnerable, but you can meet some amazing people, and you have some crazy, wonderful experiences.
For sure. I think it's just, before I left, I think I told you this yesterday, I kind of threw a little prayer, whatever you want to call it, out into the wind, saying, I just hope that I'm received by loving open arms wherever I go, and I have been. And there are amazing people everywhere, and people at their core are good, and they want to help. And they've been that way for me. And, so whether or not you go on an RV trip or a bike ride, go step off ledge and go do that thing maybe that you're wanting to do, however it might be, you're going to land. Mm-hmm. You're going to land. There's going to be people there to support you. You know, it's just a matter of trying to just really honor what it is that needs to, you know, that you need to share with the world.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about this on the podcast when it comes to travel, and a lot of Americans don't travel. One reason is because the United States is so big, it's like literally visiting different countries as you travel across the country. But I think another reason is that we are afraid to go someplace where we don't speak the language. And I think that's one reason Americans have this image when they travel of being arrogant and expecting everybody to speak English, because we're not willing to be vulnerable and say, I can't speak Italian, I can't speak Greek. And there's nothing wrong with that. And one of the things that I found, and once I discovered it, I just embrace it to the point where maybe I'm too vulnerable sometimes, but it's just like letting people know, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me?
I've asked many people along the trip, is there going to be any low clearance areas they need to look out for? Is, how do I buy a ticket for the metro? Because I've never done it before. It's not that it's hard, but it can be a little confusing sometimes the first time you walk up to one of those machines. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you just ask. It's okay. People want to help, and if they don't, then they're not people you want to hang around.
There's somebody else. Yeah. Hey, that you mentioned that you spent time camped next to a catfish.
Yeah.
And man, he's not one of the guys who catches a catfish with his fist.
No,
right?
No. I forgot what they call that. Yeah, there's a term.
Noodling, I think.
Yes, you are correct. I have no desire to do that.
Well, speaking of noodling and crazy things, what's the craziest thing you encountered on your epic adventure?
Oh, boy. Well,
other than here at La Casa de Sonia.
Well, yeah, I think it was probably like a week ago when I was going through New York City into Long Island. So a friend of mine told me not to go on the Parkway, but they didn't say why. And my GPS kept wanting to push me like the fastest way, and it would have been great for a car, but not for someone with a clearance of 11 feet 6 inches with my RV. So here I'm in the Parkway. All of a sudden I see these low bridges coming up with like clearance 7 feet, and then they're arched, so it's like on the very edge, but I'm freaking holding my breath that I don't scrape my air conditioner off as I'm going right under the middle of it. And I had to go through like 7 or 8 of those that were listed as being well under my clearance. And so until some gentleman came up and started honking and roll your window down, he said, you got to get off or you're going to screw your RV. And so I did, and I went to a Goodyear store, and the guy kindly told me how to bypass all that. But I mean, that was scary. I mean, I handled it calmly, but inside I'm just like, probably my heart rate's going. It's like, I'm going to freaking end the trip right here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get a ticket, and I'm going to be in the news. And
is there anything that you hoped had happened but hasn't happened yet?
Wow. Oh boy, I haven't won the lottery yet. No, I'm joking. I think everything's probably been just exactly the way it's supposed to be with my own self-growth process, and things just keep unfolding, and I don't. That's a great question, but I think everything's perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. You mentioned writing a book based on your experience or using this experience to kind of shape a book around. I know you're the author of a couple of great children's books.
Thank you.
You thinking anything for kids, perhaps?
Wow. Hey, it's always a possibility. I think with this one that I'm working on now, it's going to be more kind of a 6 months in an RV across America and how it changed my life, a road trip memoir. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I've got like 6 or 7 other kids' stories ready to go. I just haven't gone in there and put them together in book form. Mm-hmm. But thank you for asking. Yeah.
It's so cool. You know, one of the neat things about this podcast, and I've mentioned it before, and I'm really grateful for this podcast for so many reasons. I'm hoping that it's helping inspire families to spend more time reading together. It certainly has helped me get through the pandemic to have something to focus on. Mm-hmm. It's been real important. But it's enabled me to make friendships, and friendships with people that haven't met yet, friendships with people like you, Brian, that I have been able to meet in person and found out Brian is actually a cool guy in person. He's, not just he's not just playing a cool guy. He is actually a cool guy.
Thank you. Likewise.
It just reminds me of how fortunate we are to be living in this time of technology where we're feeling in the country right now, we feel like we're more divided than we've ever been as a nation. But I hope we all remember that we might be feeling that, but we have the potential. We have all these tools that can allow us to grow closer than we ever have been.
Absolutely. And, it's so interesting because, I've driven all over the U.S. so far, through the South and in a whole bunch of other places. And people are just friendly everywhere. Obviously, some of the political views might be a little bit different, but I just haven't had any political conversations, just meet people heart to heart. And, if you just can't keep the news at bay a little bit, it's going to, your mind won't be as clouded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I just recently had a conversation with somebody about the news and the fact, in the news industry, the motto is, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yes.
And so they're
on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. And they're not interested in presenting you the truth. They're interested in getting eyeballs and selling advertising. And sometimes the way to do that is to infuriate people and ignite people.
And there's so many good things happening out in the world that just are just being passed over, mm-hmm. that need to be out there just to make people feel better about themselves and about the world that we live in.
Yeah.
A lot of amazing, good stuff, positive stories, but you wouldn't know it.
Now, I asked you about what did you learn about yourself on the trip. What was the kind of the fun fact that you learned on the trip that you had no idea was a thing before you left?
Dang.
Well, I know you didn't understand how great a cook I was before you left.
Well,
but that's
you know what? I was about to say that. You beat me to the punch. One thing did pop into my mind. It was not necessarily a fun fact, so it's not going to be that. It's heartfelt. It's vulnerable, which we were talking about. So, all right, so everybody sit down. On this trip, I think probably the most important thing that's happening for me is I'm learning to love the Brian that didn't accomplish all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know I got a little sappy at the end there, but
that's okay. We love sap. Makes great maple syrup.
But that's what we all need to get to is that place,
mm-hmm.
and everything else falls into place.
Absolutely. So you have you're nearing the end. You've almost hit every state in the union. You've almost visited what?
Not on this trip, but in my life. Yes.
Yeah,
I've got 3 more to go.
Okay, so Maine, New Hampshire, and
Vermont.
The upper New England states. I don't know why he stayed away from beautiful New England until now. But
I don't either.
What are you hoping to find in these last few stops?
Great question. I just try to keep an open mind and just try and stay in the present moment. That's where the good stuff happens. If I try to control things too much, then I've found in my own past just that expectations can kind of sink us. So I'm really looking forward to go see Acadia National Park. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the cities in Vermont and New Hampshire, and we'll just see what happens. I mean, there's been a lot of really amazing things that are just kind of popped up out of the blue so far, and so that's what I try to hold on to and expect.
Yeah. The sunrises over Acadia National Park are absolutely
really
spectacular, and they're some of the first that you can see in the United States.
Wow. Cool.
So we definitely have to check that out. Brian, I know that you've been involved. I mentioned that you've appeared in a number of Hollywood productions. You've written a couple of books. Can you remind us of the books so people can check them out?
Thanks. Yeah. you can really find everything and anything about me on my website, which is gbrianbenson.com. That's with an I, gbrianbenson.com. My latest book, Habits for Success, Inspired Ideas to Help You Soar, is on my website. It's also on Amazon. And really proud of how that turned out. And my kids' books are also on Amazon, Lucy and Chester's Amazing Adventures and Steve the Alien. Mm-hmm. And on my website, you can find a lot of videos that I've done and short films. And yeah. And
we're keeping our fingers crossed that there's going to be a season 2 of
Sangre Negra.
Sangre Negra. That's a drama?
Yeah, it's kind of a cross between The Sopranos and Dallas. So I don't know if, the character that I play isn't necessarily, I'm acting, but it was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah. And that is starring Eric Estrada.
Yeah, and Eric Roberts is in it and a few other people. It's on Tubi, TUBI.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We've had a great time visiting with our friend G Brian Benson as he's winding up his epic cross-country adventure. Hey, Brian, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you so much, Jed, in so many ways.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Rajani LaRocca. She's here to celebrate 3 fantastic children's books that are all coming out in the same month. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, G Brian Benson. Brian, we wish you the best of luck on the remaining miles you have in your epic cross-country adventure. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.